What's up, everybody? You're listening to another episode of the SignatureCAST, where we talk bodybuilding, business, and everything in between. Today's guest, fitness badass, NPC competitor, soon to be IFBB pro, and personal trainer here at Signature Fitness, Jess Falborn. Jess, thank you for coming on today. Let these people know who you are because you walk around like a statue. Let the people know at home what's going on with you, and thank you for coming on today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so flattered that you guys wanted me to be on here and talk a little bit. So soon to be IFBB pro. I've been competing as a women's physique competitor in the MPC for, this will be my fourth show, so about 3.5, almost 4 years. Personal trainer here. I have my own business called Bodybuilding, which I'm sure a lot of people have seen me post about. Certified nutritionist, certified online coach, certified glute specialist. So
watch out.
So if you want to build the glutes, the booty. But most people come to me for lower body training, hypertrophy training, fat loss. But I'm originally from this area. I lived in Washington, D.C. for 12 years and then just moved back up here in September. So people didn't really see me around here before then. But now, I'm here like every day, like you said, walking around like a statue.
Stomping on the scene.
Quad stomping my way into every room.
Yes, 100%. Their quads are insane. Well, Jess, yes, thank you so much for coming on today. Just to let you know, you are the first female presence on the SignatureCAST.
I'm so honored.
It's going to be awesome for everyone at home, And that wasn't on purpose. It just happened to be naturally, organically that way. But you know what? I can't think of a better first guest, someone who's so jacked that I'm afraid that I might have nightmares tonight of her choking me to death.
It's an easy way to bridge the gap from all the testosterone that's been in here. Let's add a woman into the mix.
Let's add a woman in the mix.
Yeah.
Let's get a little bit of the other side of the world in the perspective. I think it's going to be fantastic. Yes, thank you for coming on today. We got a bunch of hard-hitting questions. Not really. No, we got a bunch of great questions, and I'm really excited for the people at home to get to know you and to get a little bit more of an in-depth dive into what it's like to being a female competitor. I think that's something that the sport really needs, because obviously most people, the media, everything is kind of engulfed around the male bodybuilding perspective and the female, I would call it like fit chick perspective, but not the like serious female. What would you call yourself, a bodybuilder?
I would, because I'm building my body, right? Mm-hmm. Like that's my business. That's my practice every day. My division, I'm a women's physique competitor. But for people that are like outside of the bodybuilding world, I say I'm a female bodybuilder or a women's bodybuilder or competitive bodybuilder, because that's just the most like relatable term. Yeah.
No, definitely. And I think that's the perspective I want these people at home to get is, they've heard more, because I think it's more marketable per se of the bikini competitors and or the just general fitness from the female perspective. Yeah. But me as a fan, not just of bodybuilding, but of all forms of bodybuilding, women's physique and all that stuff, I love to see the hard work that puts into it, because let's be real, building a physique like this, is a lot more difficult. And I'm not taking credit away from anyone, but putting on those pounds and pounds of muscle over years and years and years of training, hard work, it really takes a special individual.
I would agree. Are you calling me special?
No.
I am.
She's trying to get me kicked off the air here. This is click cut. We're going to take that part out. Yes, a very specially enthusiastic individual. Yes, there we go.
Yeah. It takes a unique type of person, someone like with a lot of like mental discipline and toughness and fortitude to like spend the time, the long haul, building their body, because it's not just showing up in the gym, it's everything else. And anyone who's competed before, anyone who's like gone through a body transformation knows it's so much more than just the work that you put in the gym. This is the fun part. I come here to have fun and to train clients and to work out. And I met a lot of friends here, great people. But it's the discipline and everything that you put into it outside of the gym that really is going to help you change your physique and help you kind of build those habits that transfer over to anything in your life.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. That's a common thread of, as I mentioned before, we're bodybuilding, business, and everything in between. I've had business executives in, we had the network, the master networker on the podcast, the governor of, the mayor of Belleville has been on here, and just many others. And there's the common theme across them all is it's committed dedication, day in, day out, of perfecting your craft and creating these habits or routines that allow you to make these transformations over weeks, months, years, decades.
Agreed.
Jess knows, I'm slowly trying to cut down, even though I cheated on my diet this week. But
it seems like, you say it's slow, but it really hasn't been all that slow. Like you've slimmed down quite a bit in the past few months.
Yeah, you know what it is for anybody at home, I'm a big believer in carb cycling. Yeah. And I know a lot of bodybuilders do that as well. I do a very aggressive approach to my carb cycle.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah.
Yeah, you do.
6 days, 0, 1 day carb.
It's insane.
But it works. Look, for me,
sure.
I'm definitely super carb sensitive.
Yeah.
So that refeed day, I wake up the next morning like,
yeah,
like
shrink wrap.
Yeah, well, yeah, not really yet, but eventually. But yeah, exactly. So it's what you said. It's what you do. Honestly, and the more I get into it, especially the bodybuilding side of things, coming from a strength background, 90, in my opinion, it's like 90% what you do in the kitchen and outside of the gym versus like the 10% in the gym. Like, yes, you have to kill it in here, but if you're not sleeping, if you're not eating, if you're not getting your body work done, if you're not recovering, like it's all pointless.
Yeah. This, you mentioned sleep. I will tell you one of the biggest differences from last competition prep to this competition prep has been my focus on prioritizing sleep and keeping stress levels really low.
Yeah.
And I notice, like, I have a hard and fast rule. If I'm going to, for whatever reason, because of work and clients and whatever, if I'm going to get less than 6 hours of sleep, I will not wake up and do my fasted cardio in the morning. I'll punt it to later in the day when I'm still in a fasted state, like maybe after my workout or something. And it doesn't happen often, but previous competition seasons, I would have, if I like overslept or if I got maybe 4 hours of sleep, I would have still been on the bike or the Stairmaster first thing in the morning. And it's good. I mean, it's good because I'm a very habitual, very type A person where I'm going to get my stuff done no matter what. But at what expense? At what cost? Right? Sleep is king. If I tell my clients this all the time, if you're hitting the mark on nutrition, on your workouts, on a couple other things, but you're missing maybe your sleep and maybe like your water intake. Like those are so important. You're spinning your wheels and you're doing all this work for probably nothing if you're getting less than optimal amount of sleep. So
100%. I've mentioned this on the podcast before. The past year I've used a CPAP.
Yeah.
Changed my life completely. And even as I'm losing weight, obviously sleeping gets better. Yeah. That is now part of my routine because the recovery aspect, I never understood like you said, I would get all these other things in place and I'd still get quote unquote 8 hours, but it wasn't good 8 hours of sleep. All of a sudden, like within the first 3 months of like really dedicated use of my CPAP, like muscles were growing and nothing else was changing.
Yes.
Isn't it amazing? Like, cause you're breaking them down and every workout, you might only be recovering 50% from where you were instead of that 100. Yeah. And now you're just, you're shoveling and it's getting burned every single time.
Yeah. For me last year, my last competition prep, like we got lean, but we didn't get quite to where we wanted to be. Yeah. And my stress levels were so high. It was like chronic stress levels. I wasn't sleeping. And I mean, we're sitting at 14, a little less than 14 weeks out now. And we're way ahead of where we were last year. And I attribute that really to a lot of things, but mostly to prioritizing sleep and reducing stress levels because I'm giving my body the opportunity to recover and also spend that time actually like you burn fat overnight if you can sleep. So I'm spending the time like recovering my muscles and like burning that body fat that's left. And my body's we're just chilling right now. We're just cruising.
I mean, and not to mention overall health. You're gonna be in a better mood. All of your brain hormonal levels will be better. Everything's just better when you're rested.
Oh yeah.
I mean, we've all been in that like overly caffeinated state in our lives where it's just we're dependent on some form of a stimulant.
Yep.
Nothing's ever good when that happens.
No. I was just mentioning this to Tina before. Like, she said, "Hey, do you want a cup of coffee?" And I said, "I had my 2 cups earlier today. I'll have my pre-workout, and that's it." And I used to be, especially getting ready for show, like 5-6 cups of coffee a day because I was starving or I was exhausted because nothing else was firing properly. But now I cap it, like 2 cups of coffee early in the day, pre-workout. I'm pretty low stim on that. And then I'll have decaf coffee to like stave off hunger. But caffeine has such an impact on your sleep. And it's a vicious cycle. So like you've got to make sure all those things are in check if you want to see health transformations, body transformations, and it's all, like you said, back to like habits and building out like really, really good habits.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. We're going to dive into some questions here, Jess. So hard hitting that the people at home are going to be chattering their teeth waiting for the answers. So first one, I sent her these messages before, so she knows them.
I have not seen any of these.
These are so raw questions.
I'm going to act surprised when you answer.
No, but the first one, I asked a lot of the people who come on here, especially the bodybuilders, what's your current split? How many times a week are you doing certain body parts? And with that, I will tether in what is the body part or parts that you are looking to improve on since the last show to really, give them that 1-2 punch so they can't deny you that pro card this year.
Yeah, right. Like there's going to be no GD question when I get on that stage. Okay, so Mondays I hit shoulders. Tuesdays I'm hitting hamstrings and glutes. Wednesdays I hit chest and arms. Thursdays I rest. Friday is back day. Saturday we've got quads and glutes, and then Sunday we rest again. And I don't falter from that. No matter what, everything else gets moved around my workouts. My workouts don't move.
Gotcha.
So, as far as what we need to work on, so the feedback I've gotten primarily the past 2 years is just my lower body needed to be leaner. Okay. Which is a really tough pill to swallow because I'm lower body dominant. We've got a lot of muscle there. So it's like, how else do you do it without like just dieting harder, peaking better, whatever. But I think we're also working on like building out a better taper, so a better like X frame. Mm-hmm. So building out my back a little bit, creating more detail. I mean, you can never go wrong with adding more detail. So we've worked really hard to add detail to my back, capping out shoulders a little bit more. I'm only 5'1", so I'm not trying to put on a ton of size. And we're up in muscle from last year, which is good, but not like a crazy amount. And then for my legs, like this is going to sound really funny. I'm a certified glute specialist, so I always want to like work on my glutes, but I want to be on stage and have the judges and anyone that's watching be like, holy crap, she still has an ass. Like, like in my off season, like you naturally like have those. I'm a bodybuilder, but I'm a female too. Like you naturally have curves, but I want to be able to be lean, like 6% body fat lean, and still have like have a shape. You mean,
but for the people at home like that might not understand, so. Yeah. You're not saying like when you're flexing, you just mean like just naturally walking on the stage to still have a feminine physique. Correct. Specifically in the rear end. And then when it's time to hit your shots, like cheese grater.
Yes. Yeah. Like clamshell. Yeah. And because I'm a firm believer that like feminine muscle is a thing, and I want to keep that in women's physique and in the sport. And although I've been perhaps not rewarded for not having the most lean lower body in the past, I have never regretted the package that I brought to stage. Mm-hmm. And I feel like it was strong and muscular, yet still feminine. So my goal is always to like keep those curves and those natural like feminine attributes, but also to maybe dig out more of the details. So you mentioned body work earlier. I get a lot of body work done on my lower body to make sure that we're carving all of that out. And we're just like targeting different parts of the legs. So my upper body training tends to be a little bit, a little heavier than my lower body training. I like to go really heavy in lower body, but there's no need for me to do that, especially since we want to keep inflammation low and we want to make sure that the lower body gets as much detail as possible.
Well, and of course, the closer you get to the show, the weights will come back, the squeezing, contracting will, take over, and working on those details. But that's cool. I mean, I think the people at home need to understand that from the female perspective too, the way you recover and the way you train is completely different. Like there's obviously you hit the muscle groups, but the physique, like you just said, this feminine look you're trying to accomplish. Yeah. If you were to just strictly train like a male bodybuilder would, like you're not going to develop the correct way.
It depends on what your goals are, to be honest. So like if I were to bump up, and this is probably a blanket statement, but I think it applies for a lot of women that are going to bump up to like female bodybuilding, mm-hmm. right? That like open bodybuilding space for women. that is really it's about mass, right? Like they want the conditioning, but they want mass.
Yeah, you need to be super, super muscular.
You do. And I've been approached by many other judges and coaches and other competitors who are like, you should do women's bodybuilding. And I haven't written it off at like the amateur level as like maybe a pathway to getting a pro card. But for me personally, I wouldn't compete as a pro in that division. I don't want to put that much mass on. So to your point, my coach and I will talk about my training a lot, and we'll talk about like I don't need to go as heavy as I actually can. Like I posted a video of me on the T-bar row recently.
And you got ripped a new one from your coach.
I did.
Tell the people.
I did. Well,
didn't listen.
It's a good anecdote because I think people all too often will sacrifice form and actually like contractions and feeling a full movement for pulling weight. And I'm like guilty as charged so many times a week. And then I constantly have to go back into my head and remember like, don't yank the weight, like feel the contraction. So I was on the T-bar row and it was a video of me doing a drop set from 3 plates all the way down to 1. And don't get me wrong, like I can move the weight and I can move a lot of weight, but were they quality reps when my focus is not necessarily to get like a thicker back? No, I just need that detail. So like more time under tension, squeezing, not using my hips. So if I'm going to be putting on a ton of size, I can have those like kind of sloppy reps. But if we're not trying to go for that, the time under tension, slow and controlled, like not using any other muscle groups to stabilize is probably where I need to be. So to your point about like if females should train differently than males, I think it's more just based on like what their specific goals are.
Yeah.
Because I would argue that like maybe a men's physique competitor is going to train different than a men's open bodybuilder.
Oh, for sure.
Right. And
yeah.
so a bikini competitor is going to train different than like a women's physique competitor.
Yeah.
And so it's not necessarily always gender specific, although a lot of times it is.
Yeah. Very interesting. So my next hard-hitting question, this honestly probably is the one I'm most interested in. You said you've been doing this competing now for 4 years, roughly?
Just about, yeah.
And obviously you did have a fitness background before that. I know you're CrossFit certified and did a few of those things. But how has your family taken on this new physique and new role? Because obviously this isn't something where like, if someone's a closet, like poker player, like they can hide it. You know what I mean? Like you can't hide the fact that you were competing and, walking around, much more muscular than you were.
No, yeah.
So how does your family reacted to this? And with that being said, what are some of the challenges you have received either socially or within the, your own family unit or just from friends and people like that with, becoming this new physique of yours?
Yeah. So I'm a lifelong athlete, and in my household, like if you didn't play sports, we were pushed to do something competitive. So, in my former career, like I went to the gym, but I wasn't a huge gym rat. And then I had a nutrition coach and I got into CrossFit. And everyone in my life was like, it's about time. Like you are an intense individual and like you like to work out, so it makes sense. And then I just started, like it snowballed from there. And then I made the career change. And my nutrition coach, he was a bodybuilder and he suggested that I do a bodybuilding show. And I was like, I had always shit on bodybuilders. I was like, I do not want to do that. That's so stupid. Like I like to lift heavy weight, and I was doing CrossFit and I was powerlifting, and that's where I like really, really like enjoyed myself. And then I ended up hurting my back getting ready for a powerlifting meet.
Oh.
I did. And it was, a combination of poor form, and then I just overdid it, and that's classic Jess. I overdo everything. And then I went to a baby shower, and I was the designated strong friend, so I got to pick up all the heavy gifts. And then I came back the next day, and I couldn't move. And so at that point, not like I had to throw the towel in on competing as a power lifter, but I was like, you know what, maybe I will do a bodybuilding show, because I wanted something to work towards.
Yeah.
Okay? And it was summertime, and I was like, you know what, I'll like get a nice summer beach body and try this out. And my coach wants me to do it. And so I remember telling my family, and they're like, that's so cool. And so I got into it, and I did one show, and I was a figure competitor. And I did it, and I took first and second place in the different classes that I competed in. And my dad and my sister came, I remember, and they were just like, this is badass. yes, like this is so cool. So as soon as I stepped off the stage, I realized I was nationally qualified. I started to learn about different divisions. I was like, oh, well, I want to do another one now. Like, I'm that good. I want to do another one. So I didn't end up competing again that year. And I didn't understand what an off season was. I got a different coach. Like, I just didn't know the world of bodybuilding, but I knew I wanted to do it again. And then someone told me I should do women's physique because I have a lot of muscle. I was like, okay, I'll try to do that. I just didn't realize what I was getting into. And my family didn't realize what we were getting into. And as they kind of learned what bodybuilding was, there was never a moment. My family's incredibly supportive. There's never been a moment where they're like, are you sure you want to do this? They're like, whatever Jess wants to do, she's going to do it. And she's going to achieve it. But there have been times where, like last year, I had some health issues. And my family was like, whatever you decide to do, we support you. But just make sure your health is first. My dad, in my off season this year, he is all over my Instagram, and he saw a video that I posted here of me lifting, like doing deadlifts, and he was like, Jess, I just have to ask you, like, did you put on a lot of muscle? You look like your legs are a little bit bigger. I was like, yes, we did. That's an off season, Dad. And so it's just been like teaching them, but I'm so lucky that they're so supportive. Like, there's never been a moment where they have told me not to do something. Now, we'll have very candid, frank conversations about, like, they'll say to me, like, don't get too masculine. Like, please don't get too masculine. Like, the minute we're going to tell you if we think that you are. And they're not so like scrubbed into the world where they know everything that goes into it. Like, but they've seen, you see the extreme cases.
Yeah, you see both sides of that spectrum.
Yeah. So they're very like vocal about that. We're New Yorkers, so we like are going to tell you exactly what's on our mind.
Oh yeah.
But they're supportive. They are my like loudest supporters. Like, I always have the loudest crew at any show. All the time. Last year, we all wore, this is from my brand, and we all wore the Shock Everyone gear. Like, I had 15 people at my show in Charleston rocking these T-shirts. My dad's walking around giving people the link to my online store. Like, we're just, like, no matter what my family would choose to do, everyone's going to support you. So I've been very, very fortunate. They've never questioned it. And my mom's in the audience yelling, like, whatever my number is, like, 151, you're beautiful. Like, you're so feminine. Like, as if anyone had to be, like, reassured of that.
Like that's the one thing. Normally you hear, like, squeeze your glutes.
Yeah. Nope.
Tie.
Yeah. Nope.
No, she's screaming, you're feminine.
Yeah. You're
gorgeous.
Always in the front row. And my dad's like, fuck yeah. Like, I'm so lucky, honestly. And like, I have such a great crew. So, I have a really good experience with it. I've heard other people haven't had the best, but I've never not had anyone supporting me or not had anyone in my corner from my family. So been lucky.
I mean, that's fantastic. I love to hear stories like that because, you understand, especially being in it and me from the outside perspective and just being around it, there is a lot of negativity, we'll just call it darkness around this sport.
So much.
Whether with what it is the athletes have to do, what the athletes go with their families and all this type of stuff. So it's great to hear that it's just a supportive nature for you. And I think that's what's going to honestly catapult you like already. I mean, you just told me you've competed 4 times?
3. This will be
so you competed 3 times, and in reality, as long as all things go well and you show up with your best bet, on this 4th show, you have a great chance of getting a pro card.
Yeah, for sure.
It takes some people 10, 12, 20 shows.
It's crazy.
So I think for anyone out there who's a hopeful competitor or something, but surround yourself with a crew of people who will support you.
Yep.
You don't want yes men, you want honest people.
Yep.
This is good, this is bad, you're looking this way, you're looking that way. You need to take this more seriously, this less seriously. And I think that goes to show, like you said, it's your 4th show.
Yeah.
You're hoping to bring home the gold, and
I will.
She will bring home the gold.
I'm going to come back in 14 weeks and be a pro. Like,
that's it.
You have to
Speak
believe
it.
You have to speak it into existence.
That's it.
But to your point about like surrounding yourself with the right people, early in my bodybuilding career, I wasn't 100% wasn't, and I was listening to opinions from multiple people whose opinions really didn't matter, and I thought they did, but they really didn't matter. And so as I've progressed and matured in the sport, I've identified the opinions that matter to me, and there's very, very few, and the rest, like, it's lovely when someone out on the gym floor is like, oh my God, you look ripped, or like, you look great, or like, how many weeks out are you? Or like, your posing looks great. They'll see me like hitting a pose or something. It's amazing. And don't get me wrong, I love the support, but the opinions that truly matter are my prep coach, my posing coach, and me.
Yeah.
Like no one else is, I mean, if I have a trainer that I work with, their opinion matters. But other than that, the feedback, sure, you can give me feedback, but it doesn't necessarily matter. And I think that's where a lot of people will get a little bit like stressed out and thrown off when they're getting ready for anything big, right? A bodybuilding show, maybe a powerlifting meet,
anything,
competition, right? Like having too many cooks in the kitchen and putting too much weight on someone else's opinion when it doesn't actually matter because A, maybe you haven't hired them, B, they're not a subject matter expert, or C, they don't know jack shit about your sport or what you're doing. And please, go ahead, please.
I'm sorry. I'm going to hop in here because, so ladies and gentlemen, we're here at Signature Fitness, Melbourne, New Jersey, the newest and best mecca of all things fitness. And I love it, as you can tell by my enthusiasm, my voice. We are a fantastic gym, but there are a lot of experts that like to walk around here.
Oh, my.
And you know who you are.
Yeah.
You know who you are. I'm looking at you right now.
We were going to talk about my pet peeves, I think, today.
We'll get to that in a second.
We're starting.
But that's one of the things I love is I love when someone, and this is my own personal pet peeve, they might look at me and notice that I'm at 20% body fat per se, but they think I have no idea what diet is, no idea what training is, no idea what bodybuilding is, or like the other day, it was fantastic. Someone, I have these interactions with Victor Munoz all the time, in a good way though. He'll be like, oh yeah, I remember in such and such. I'm like, oh, you mean 07, blah 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 blah, this show? And he'll be like, how do you? And then he'll be like, oh, this person, oh yeah, you mean they were hitting this classic pose started by Frank Zane and blah 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 blah. And he was just like, how do you? I'm like, just because it doesn't look like it doesn't mean I don't know.
Yeah.
And that happens all the time. People, sometimes keeping your opinions to yourselves and being humble.
There's not enough humility.
There's not enough humility and humbleness.
Yeah.
I don't even know if humbleness is a word.
Humility. That's okay.
Okay, humility.
I got you.
Thank you. See, we're being humble here.
But you're right, because there's a lot of people that will walk around and believe that someone at some point told them that their opinion mattered. And you know what? Maybe it matters in different circles, but don't go out offering it like it's the most important opinion in the room, especially when you don't know someone's background. Like maybe, like I like to, if I see someone out on the gym floor, like doing something that I know is wrong.
Or like may injure themselves or something. Of course.
If they are going to injure themselves, I will say something, whether or not I'm in my trainer's outfit or not. But otherwise, I generally don't say anything because everyone has different goals. And so you have no idea what someone is working towards, what they've done to get there. I think about this a lot of times when like you'll see trainers training a client and maybe their squat form is not good. And people will be like, I can't believe that trainer let that person squat like that. Do you know where their squat started? Like how
they might not have been able to even like pick up a baseball off the floor and now they're attempting a squat.
Yeah,
like the progression could be massive.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's why, like, I mean, it's not on the same topic of like people assuming that they're experts, but like assuming that their opinion matters in your world is something that you see a lot of, like entitlement, people believing that their opinion matters. But then, a lot of people assuming that they are an expert on something and that they should offer that opinion or guidance to you. And it's a pet peeve of mine, but also as a competitor and as you mature in whatever sport or thing that you're pursuing, you start to understand what opinions really do matter. And you can, whether it's just set boundaries or just like accept someone's opinion for what it is and then just move along and not actually like apply any like weight or value to it. And as I've gotten more into the sport, I've realized, like I said, the only opinions that matter are my prep coach, my posing coach, myself, and if I have a trainer. Other than that, the people that are supportive in my circle, great, cool, love it. But they don't, my dad all the time, he'll be like, yesterday he said, I was looking more defined this year. And I said, thank you so much. I was like, you know what, because we were comparing like 14 weeks out last year versus 14 weeks out this year. He's like, you look more defined. And I was like, yeah, we look leaner. He's like, oh, that's the word. That's the word. Okay, now I know. Like he says it because he wants to be supportive, but he doesn't necessarily know. So he's like, don't listen to me. I'm like, no. You mean that with the best of intent,
it comes from a good place.
Yes,
that's what, I mean, I've seen people out on the floor here at other gyms, and a lot of times it genuinely, things come from a good place.
Correct.
It's the ones that don't come from a good place and are misinformed.
Oh, yeah.
Which is the
oh, yeah.
bane of my existence.
Oh yeah. Oh, I get it. Believe me. Like, people may not say it to me, but I hear people have said stuff, and you kind of have to laugh about it because you don't know where someone comes from.
No, of course. Just like they might not know your experience, you don't know theirs, and all that type of stuff.
Yeah.
So let's dive in, because you mentioned it prior. It doesn't have to be about the gym. This could be a life pet peeve.
Oh.
Because I know you had asked some interesting questions for Sean when he was on, which threw him for a loop if you didn't notice. But first one I want to ask is, like, what's a pet peeve of yours in life and or in the gym? Something that you think if it didn't happen, people would just be better people. Yeah,
I think we just touched on a big one, like assuming that you are an expert at something. But I'll take it one step further when it comes to like the gym and coaching. Just because you have learned something from like YouTube or doing it for a few months does not mean you're an expert and can charge people for it. I like,
if I could drop these microphones, that was like an atomic bomb on the fitness industry. I'm done. I'm leaving. Like, that was
why would I? You know what? I'm gonna say this, and it might offend some people, but why would I pay someone to teach me how to pose on stage who has never competed before?
Why would I ask someone to coach me in powerlifting if I've never done a powerlifting meet before?
Yeah. Now, don't get me wrong. There's a lot that you can learn about this stuff. But I am not going to go to you as a subject matter expert if you have not walk the walk and talk the talk.
That's a pet peeve of mine that I have seen everywhere.
Yeah,
we're not just talking gym specific. Yeah. We're talking in every industry, in every field. We talk bodybuilding, business, and everything in between. Do you know how many crypto and investment specialists there are right now?
They're all in my DMs right now.
Oh my God. Every day I get these like spam messages. Join our crypto circle and make million, blah, 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 blah. And it's a constant. The funny thing about that is it's such a new industry. There is no expert.
Correct. Yeah.
So they're all pretending to be an expert on something that's impossible to be an expert on.
Exactly.
It's still developing.
Yep.
But yes, you see that in bodybuilding. You see that in powerlifting and strongman. You go on.
So I think that might be Will's pet peeve too.
Well, you know what it is because, and in all honesty, people listening at home, I did used to do online coaching. I think I had mentioned it to you before.
Yeah.
I took more of a holistic and like complete like life coaching approach, but it was all tied back into fitness and motivation and all that type of stuff. I think my website's actually still up. I gotta check if it is.
I gotta look for that.
Yeah, I think it's just WilliamBlazeski.com.
Look it up, guys.
It might be.
Check it out.
It's really cheesy. It's fantastic. Don't worry, it doesn't. There's no services available. But I used to do the coaching, and I had a couple clients. Most of them were remote. None of them lived in the area, and charged a substantial amount of money. A few $100s a month, but you had direct access to me, to my phone. We had scheduled calls twice a week, check-ins, everything you could imagine. And the most frustrating thing was like the amount of time that I had to put into these people. A, when they don't see the results, and then they wonder why, but they go partying on the weekends, and they wonder why it doesn't happen. And then B, I had two of them come up to me and they were like, oh yeah, I actually just started this new program from such and such. One of them was a bodybuilder, one of them was like a booty thing that they saw on Instagram because there's a guy and a girl. And they're like, so I'm going to try these. And this wasn't like the same time, but this was in the 6 months of these two different clients reaching out to me and telling them, yeah, I'm just going to go with this and blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, you go and you look at these people and they just have God-given genetics, whether it's for the males, this fantastically lean, muscular-esque physique, and for the women, the curvy physique that everyone's looking for. And because someone saw a picture on Instagram, they must be qualified.
Yep.
Oh my Lord.
I'll be very candid. will get a lot of clients and a lot of client inquiries because people will see my physique and they'll see photos and they just assume that it's a causation, right? Jess must have this physique because she knows what she's doing and she coached herself to get that. So that must mean that she can help me get that same physique instead of it being correlation, right? Jess has this physique and she worked her ass off and she has had great coaches and this has been years of work. And also she spent a lot of time learning this and getting her certifications and making the transition into this industry and hours and hours and hours of studying, right? It's the latter. It's not the former, right? Like this didn't happen overnight. And I was not a great coach before. And I still don't believe I'm the best coach. And I have a ton more to learn. And so I have crazy imposter syndrome, but I'm trying to get better at it. But I mean, I'll say no to clients sometimes that ask me for things that I don't feel comfortable offering. Like I haven't yet coached anyone for a bodybuilding show. And I don't know if I want my business to go in that direction. I'm starting to work with people in their off season and I've committed to like 2023 shows with folks, but I specifically just women, like I haven't coached men for a bodybuilding show and I don't think I will just because it's not something I know much about yet. And I would feel very disingenuous taking someone's money and getting their hopes up and trying to get them ready for a show and then maybe destroying their health. They lose, like they have a bad taste in their mouth in the bodybuilding industry. I just don't, it's a pet peeve of mine when someone sells a bill of goods that they cannot deliver on just because they studied it on YouTube or practiced it once.
Bodybuilding for dummies.
Yeah, and that's how we all win, right? That's how we get to the Olympia stage.
Yeah.
Just watch a YouTube video.
We just put Ronnie Coleman on loop.
Yeah, that's how I learned to deadlift, right?
I mean, that's a great pet peeve.
Yeah.
And clearly it was one of mine.
Yeah, right.
If you couldn't tell. So you're an NPC competitor, you want to get your IFBB Pro card. I know we have had these discussions, and I don't know if you said this on other podcasts yet, but twofold. Why do you do what you do? And what's the end goal? When you hang your hat up, what's the end goal?
So the main reason I got into competing, aside from just saying like, oh, I'll try something new, is as I was getting into coaching and teaching in the fitness space, I wanted to be able to learn the mental toughness and the discipline that it would take to be successful in an extreme sport or in a sport in general, and then teach others how to apply those skills to their life in lots of different ways. And I still have that feeling now, having developed a crazy amount of discipline and mental toughness, and building out like habits in order to build structure in your life. So ask any one of my clients. They know I'm more than just a trainer, more than just a nutrition coach. I'm giving them tools to help apply everything they're learning from me to all parts of their life. And I remember, I think it was the end of 2020. Yeah, so 2020 was a really tough year. I actually launched my business January 2020, and then the world shut down, which was terrifying. It was terrifying. And my only sources of income were in a brick and mortar gym. And so when that shut down, I freaked out and didn't know what to do. And I had built this business plan and everything went out the window, and I just went where the market wanted me to go, and it was all virtual, And so I sat down at the end of 2020. I remember it was New Year's Eve, and I don't care. I'm a loser. I don't like to go out on New Year's Eve. And I was sitting there by myself, and I had gotten I think steak, and I had like a little bottle of champagne, and I was like, I'm going to look and see how much money I made this year, because it was coming from everywhere, right? Like people were Venmoing, and like I was getting paid from the gym and my business. And it was my first year not in my former career. And I like cried realizing that I like did so well in 2020. And I was like, I have to take everything that I did and applied this year to like just hustling and getting it done and teach others how to do this. So that's a very long-winded way of saying that I want to be able to teach others really good habits and mental toughness and discipline that they can apply to anything in their life to achieve whatever they want, because you truly can. If you want something, you can achieve it. It's just a matter of priorities and if you want it. And I'm looking at the camera because I'm looking at all my clients right now. They know. I will ask them. They're like, oh, but I was so busy, and like, Jess, I just wanted to sleep and I didn't have time to meal prep. And I asked them, I'm like, but do you want it? Do you want it bad enough? Because if you want it bad enough and it's a priority, you're going to make it happen. If you don't want it bad enough, you're going to make an excuse. End of discussion. So I wanted to learn that stuff to be able to teach other people. And then my end goal is twofold. I mean, I'm going to put this out there in the universe. I'm going to manifest it. I want a fitness empire. I do. I want people all over the world to know my name. And we're getting there, like slowly but surely. And I'm proud of how far I've come in just, being in this industry, full-time working in this industry, only 3 years. But I also want to be on the Olympia stage as a competitor. That is a big goal of mine. I'm not going to say necessarily to win the Olympia, although that would be pretty badass, but I want to make it to the Olympia stage at least once. I know I have a finite amount of time where I want to be competing because there's other things I want to do in my life, but I want to make it to that Olympia stage. So I want to get my pro card. I want to win a pro show and or qualify on points, and I want to get to that Olympia stage. And I believe I can do it. So I've got like my personal and my professional goals there. And
we might even do that this year.
I mean,
that's the goal.
I don't see why not.
I don't see why not. Yeah. I love that you just kept saying, and don't mind me making my random gestures to the camera, but once again, ladies and gentlemen, any who wasn't following from the beginning, I've mentioned so many times the talks that I used to give at universities. It's called See It, Believe It, and Achieve It.
Yeah.
It's so true.
Yeah.
It's just what you said. Yeah. You got to see something, you believe in yourself, and you can achieve it. Yeah. And any excuse you give along the way, it's complete bullshit.
Yeah. It just means you don't want it bad enough.
Yeah. You just don't want, or it's not your priority.
And which is okay.
Which is okay. But you need to be honest with yourself.
1,000%.
And say, this isn't my priority right now. And priorities change. I used to be, perfect example right now. And when this podcast comes out, it will most likely have already finished and taken place. The World's Strongest Man competition is going on right now in Sacramento, California. That was like, when I was a kid, that's where this whole speech that I give came from. I used to watch it with my dad when I was like 7 years old in his apartment type thing. I used to want to be the world's strongest man. And it's not that I don't want to do it anymore, but like as you get older, your priorities change. Like you said, you hurt your back. Like I've had enough injuries to where I'm just, like right now, it's on the shelf.
Yeah.
I don't want to put my body through that right now. And so I'm trying to enjoy working and getting in shape and being fit and, enjoying my first apartment and all that, like the fun stuff, you know what I mean? Yeah. Because it'll always, well, not forever be there, but I think I still have a good,
you're young. Yeah.
I have a good 10, 15 year window where that's still a possibility.
Yes.
And that's, people need, like you said, they need to be honest with themselves. So it's okay, but just what's most important to you is one thing, but be honest.
Yeah.
Maybe you just don't have the time right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
But we need to have these conversations and say, you know what, maybe I should revisit this in a year when my life is put together better or, because you've seen it a million times, things, especially in this industry, when they put their physique as the forefront of their life.
Yes.
Everything else sometimes crumbles because they don't have the structure in place.
Correct. Yeah. I mean, like if you're not paying attention to your personal life, your family life, your finances, like your career, you can't, you're only going to look a certain way for a certain amount of time. I mean, we all get old.
Yeah.
We all get old. And you know what? The mental and the physical are like directly linked. So if everything else is, and I can tell you firsthand, if everything else is stressing you out, your physique is going to show that. And that's, just if like your physique is your goal, but it's synergistic, like they all work together. And so if you're going to work towards a goal, if everything else isn't aligned to help you achieve that goal, either make sure it is or be more realistic about what your goal is and how you're going to get there.
Definitely 100%. Yeah. 2 more questions, and then we're going to wrap it up because I know you got a sick training session coming up.
I do.
Shout out to Chris Vera, Next Level Visionary, right?
Yeah, we're filming.
Imagine I said the wrong videographer. That'd be really fucked up.
I'd be like, I'm going to work with them too one day. Yeah. Thanks, Will.
Yeah, shout out to Chris. I know you guys are going to be doing an awesome video shoot in a minute. But so I deep dove. As you know, I'm pretty good friends with Sean Clarita, and they were actually the first guest on our podcast. Was he and his significant other, Rosangela.
They're the best.
Oh, they're awesome. So interestingly enough, here's a little deep dive.
Okay.
what's happening in the relationship life of Jess Falborn, and have you?
Were you really?
Oh, we're doing
this question.
We're asking this question. No, but for an interesting perspective, I'm not a competitor in terms of a physique. Have you dealt with a significant other where this like you living this lifestyle, like people couldn't, or do you find it hard for people to accept you because of? I don't want to say intimidating, but you are a very proud and determined person. So do you find that as like almost like a factor in like who you choose to just communicate with on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
But I'm unapologetic about it. I mean,
no, I mean, well, that's one for anybody who gets to know Jess, right in your face. Like right in your face. Like, you're stupid. I hate you.
No. I'm a nice person.
Very much so, yes.
I'm direct, but I'm nice.
Direct, yeah.
Yeah, it does, because I think you're right. I think there's an intimidation factor for multiple reasons. There's the stigma of just like women with muscle and female bodybuilders, and that's not for everyone. I think also like someone who's quite direct, who's like really, really hardworking and passionate about things and very type A, and I'm all those things. And so I think for the wrong person, that's really intimidating, and they're probably not for me, whether it's as a friend or a romantic partner or someone I would keep in my close circle. My circle's pretty small, and so the people that are in my circle are the ones that like I know have no problem with that, and they're usually like that too. And then I think there's the other piece where like not everyone wants to be involved with a bodybuilder. Like, well,
and that's the reason why I brought it up is because Rosangela's perspective is very interesting because, she's dealing with someone who's at like the pinnacle of this sport. And, we talked about like she said on the podcast, there's times where they won't even like, they're almost like telepathic communication because, it's go time and he's getting ready for the show and they're not really even talking, but they're communicating in their own way. Yeah. And I just find that so interesting. That's why I'm just trying to see it from the opposite perspective, because people don't understand what it's like to like be that 4, 6, 8, 12 weeks out, like mind state, physical state,
Yeah. I mean, I'll be honest, I've dated fellow bodybuilders when I've been getting ready for a show and they were in their off season. And I've also dated bodybuilders that were not competing at all. Maybe they used to compete and they don't anymore. And then I've also dated people that were also getting ready for a show at the same time. And I think the tough part there, I'm going to throw out maybe some stereotypes that do kind of ring true and maybe some that like don't always, but in like a male-female dynamic relationship. So one is it's not all that common for the female to be the one competing and the male to not be a competitor. So for me, I know I want to date someone that's in the bodybuilding industry or close proximity to it because they get it.
They understand it.
Yeah. And but also if you're someone who is very driven, like I am, you have goals that you're working towards. So sometimes it can be tough for someone to have their goals take a backseat while they support someone who's like reaching their competition or their goal, right? So that can be a challenge. And I think in our society, it's the stereotype is that like men are competing for bodybuilding and typically their female partner has been just supporting them in that journey. And it's changed over the past few years, certainly, as like more women have gotten into bodybuilding, but in my experience, like that's been a tough pill to swallow for some of the guys I've dated because whether they want to be back in that time getting ready for a show, and so they like don't really know how to be the supportive partner, and that's a tough thing for them to do. Or maybe they realize they don't want to be with a female bodybuilder and they want someone who actually doesn't compete and is just kind of more of like a supportive role or something. Yeah. Which is, I mean, it's all okay. Like you don't know until you try. And I'm a perfect example of that too. Like I've realized over time, like someone who's in really close proximity to the industry is important to me just so we can like have that same level of like connection before a show and we can speak the same language and
understanding the dedication and everything.
Exactly. Yeah. So, I mean, it's not easy, but I don't think it's just bodybuilding specific. I think it's like if you're a person that is really driven and passionate and hardworking towards a goal, like unrelentlessly, unapologetic, you have to find You have to keep people in your life that are supportive of that and maybe have their own hustles too. So they're not just like constantly waiting on you.
Yeah. I mean, you see it a lot with like, for example, like someone who's trying to become a doctor and they're going through undergrad, graduate, doctor, all that stuff, all that schooling, like you either need to be in it and understand it or just be like
a supportive role.
Or as you mentioned, doing your own, avenue to where at the end of the day you can come together and oh, this happened, this blah, 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 blah. But you're right. If it is very important, like, I mean, I know Steph and I, thankfully, like Steph, so my girlfriend is really big into gaming.
Yeah.
So she does that like competitively and I do my
I didn't
like.
realize she did that competitively.
Oh yeah, it's awesome.
That's so cool.
I mean, I could never sit and watch a video game all day long.
Yeah.
They can. I don't know how, but so she's super into that, and then I'm super into like fitness, and I'm now joined an arm wrestling team, and I do all this stuff. So it's great because we used to both be super fitnessy. Like when we first started, dating. She would come with me to the gym all the time and everything, which was great. But it also started getting like, you almost want to like, you need some time to do your own things. Yeah. So you're right. It's important. But even if, for you or for anyone, both in the bodybuilding industry, it's definitely important to like understand each other, but sometimes have these different goals or avenues that they go into.
Yeah. I mean, and if bodybuilding is the common ground, then like hopefully you both have like different careers or like different things that you're pursuing within your different passions and careers, like I personally, I don't think I would want to date someone that's like also a trainer, also at the same gym, like you want to like diversify your circles.
In some way.
Yeah. But it's nice to be able to go to events, for example, with someone that and you can, they can be like your partner in crime for that type of stuff.
Or like, oh, look at that person's glutes or whatever, or that person, and you get like, I love like, so the other day, Steph works for Animal, right? And so she's in the bodybuilding world per se. Yeah. But so all of a sudden over the past like year and a half, now we went to the Olympia together and all these things. She'll be like, babe, he's got gyno or his lats aren't as big as he, and she's like, oh, his conditioning isn't as good as this guy. And I'm just like, yeah,
that's my woman. She
understands. And she's like, oh, he doesn't hit that pose right. And I'm like,
hell yeah, we can talk about this
like,
stuff
exactly.
now.
I'm like, I'm geeking out. Yeah. Like, trust me, that'll never happen. I'm like, wow, great use of the RPG on that video game. Like, I would have no clue. But at least for the bodybuilding, it is cool though. You're right, a partner in crime to be able to like at least understand what's going on.
That's your source of common ground, and then you're like individuals where you both have your own things going on. So that's where I am. Will, thanks for hitting on that.
Such a hard hitting question, right? All right, last one. Okay. This is to the camera. What makes Jess Falborn different than every other female bodybuilding physique competitor? Why are you going to win over everyone else? What sets you apart from the rest of the world?
Can I say my glutes? I'm kidding.
No, you cannot say your glutes. Something other than a physical.
Okay. Everyone's road is different. My journey, I spent 12 years as a lobbyist in Washington, D.C. I spent 12 years learning how to be a professional, how to be a sales and business development executive, lobbying the White House, lobbying Capitol Hill. I didn't even think about bodybuilding until I hit 31. And then to be able to do what I've done in 3 years, the discipline and the mental toughness that I've developed, I'm not saying no one else has it, but I know what I've got. And then I'm blessed with good genetics and a hard work ethic. No one wants this more than I do. No one wants it more than I do. I'm going to make it happen. And there's a lot of people out there that are unique, but their time was before. This is my time.
That's it. It's Jess Falborn's time.
It is.
She's unique.
Yeah.
That's it.
We're going to shock everyone.
Ladies and gentlemen, you heard here. She's going to shock everyone. Thank you for listening to another episode of the SignatureCAST, where we talk bodybuilding, business, and everything in between. Jess, thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Have a good one, guys. We'll see you soon.
See ya.